silent pact that you are talking about, the Kemalist man and the practicing Muslim, is something that I guess I'm being here more structuralist, has something to do with the Turkey's integration to the global world economically, so that there's this new element of neoliberalism and this demand for easy and flexible labor force, and that happened to be headscarf women. And that happened to be women, number one, and then, well, the even weaker segment of that population is headscarf women, so that you can easily invite and then send back, depending on the demands of the labor market at that time. For the for the second question, of course, very rightfully you were saying this on headscarf women and being the good citizens and the headscarf women are being the bad citizens. How are they going to collaborate, for God's sake, right? You're right, but I guess I'm simply talking about, I'm extremely aware of the difficulties of collaboration between on headscarf women and headscarf women on the political rights, on the economic rights even. But I guess I'm more, again, I'm talking with my sociologist hat here, and the more women we have in general, the more women we have in the labor market, there's more possibility for women to speak about glass ceiling, to speak about discrimination, to speak about harassment. But the fewer we are, less voices we can raise. And how do I know that? Well, the whole literature on sociology of organization suggests us so. So mine is just an intellectual estimate. It would be nice to have more women, both head-covered and unhead-covered, in the labor market, so that we may collaborate and talk about positive discrimination in the workplace. That's it, right? Thank you, Ed.
For the sake of time, I'll just go on to the question and answer section. Yes. Yes.
I had two quick questions, and initially, I just wanted to comment on Dr. Islam's statement that the West is imposing exceptionalism on Turkey, and having traveled extensively in the Arab world and in Iran and everything, Turkey is exceptional. I mean, if you go to a place like Bursa on Friday prayer time and you see, covered women, non-covered women, I mean, sitting in little cafes, some of them listening to the khutbah which is being, announced, and some of them, I mean, it's absolutely beautiful, and I don't think you can find anything as beautiful as that in any other part of the practicing Muslim world. And if you go to Kartepe, you'll see, Muslim women with headscarves doing snowboarding and skiing and this kind of stuff. Again, that kind of openness in our society, in Turkish society, I think is very rare. So I think that it's not this kind of imposition of exceptionalism is not from the outside. I think it's a recognition of the fact that Turkey truly is exceptional. The question that I had for you, for anybody, either of you, is twofold. One is that, is there still a difference between this turban, as you mentioned, and the headscarf? So that if somebody wears their scarf a little bit looser, does that student, female student, have a better access? Is it less looked down on than somebody who wears a turban? Is that still in existence? And the second question that I have is, don't you think that this is more a battle of, the fundamentalist atheist versus anybody who practices religion? Because I know somebody, and in many cases where we'll have a male, either in the university, I know one who was a doctoral student at Boğaziçi University, and he was told, we know you pray at home, be careful. I mean, this has nothing to do with the headscarf issue. So there is this fundamentalist religion of atheism that that is prevalent among the so-called intelligentsia of Turkey. And I think that don't you think that that's part and parcel of the picture, that aside from the feminist aspects of it, maybe we ought to look at it from a different perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Turkey, I'm talking about Turkish exceptionalism within the context of the headscarf issue. And I have to say, if you go to Egyptian Cairo streets, you will still see women in hookah bars and with their headscarves and singing a little bit and playing. You might see some of that even in certain parts of some other Muslim countries. But the Turkish exceptionalism I am talking about here, is making a reference to, is the kind of looking away from issues of empowerment of women from the Western perspective, because there are more dire issues to be looked into in the Muslim world vis-a-vis women's emancipation and empowerment. One thing, and then Turkey is the only Muslim member of NATO, and it's an ally of State of Israel, and therefore it provides security from the perspective of this very city, not maybe in general the Western society, but definitely as far as where we are standing in Washington, D.C., Turkey has been considered as an exceptional country, which indeed did a disservice to Turkish democratization and empowerment of women, because we looked away from the headscarf problem as well. The headscarf problem came and sat in our international agenda in 1999 when I was elected to the parliament. Until then, nobody really cared about us. I was a medical school student in the 1980s, protesting at Ankara University Medical School. Nobody cared about us. I had seen my mother go through a very similar thing prior to 1980s. So it took us 20-some years for the world, that is us, to turn and look at this issue and recognize it as a human rights violation matter, and therefore the State Department reports, UN reports, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch reports, Freedom House reports, starting off year 2000 included the headscarf ban. This has to do with that exceptionality. Indeed, I do recognize the very differences between Turkish democratization and Turkish empowerment of citizens, be women or men, versus some other countries as well. Turban versus the headscarf. Again, thank you very much for this question. Indeed, the word turban was created, concocted by, or brought in to our discourse in this modern Turkish era by late Doğramacı, Professor Doğramacı, who was the head of the Supreme Education Council, just to find a way to negotiate between the state and these girls. But later we know that the word turban assumed this very negative connotation of being a political symbol. And the state manipulated the word headscarf because the state never wants to appear to be antithetical to religion. Religion is a source of inspiration that needs to be tapped into whenever it is necessary by the very state. The establishment of the Directorate of Religious Affairs is problematic from this perspective and other things. So Turkish secularism, unfortunately, very much gives the opportunity and the responsibility, discretion to the state to mold and play with religion. And the turban versus the headscarf is another way of manipulating the discourse and arguing that, oh, no, we're not against the headscarf. How can we be against the headscarf? What we're against is the turban. What is a turban? It has to do with my age. It has to do with my educational background. It has to do with my pin, the one that I use here at this time, and age, right? So that is a concept that has been brought upon the women with the headscarves from outside. Another implication of the very Orientalist discourse, I would say, without going into any depth in that. I never called what I'm wearing a turban, but the state has called what I'm wearing a turban because I'm an educated young woman who has a mouth and who demands a place in public sphere. Fundamentalist, atheist, thank you for that as well. Headscarf is indeed the tip of the iceberg of a larger problem. And I'm not going to end even with the issues of religiosity. Anybody who does not quite fit into that construction of Turkish national identity can be assumed to be out of that context and therefore could be perceived as a threat to the Turkish statehood, be an extreme marginalized promoter of a particular view, political view, cultural view, social view, gender view, or religious view for that matter. That is correct, but for the purpose of this program, we're just looking into the headscarf.
Hi, my name is Dilek. I am Turkish correspondent for T24 Istanbul. So I would like to especially ask first of all Dilek Cindoglu, you mentioned as a journalist woman. I was as a journalist woman in Ankara many years after 1990 and before 2009. So after 2002, which is elected year and AKP government started to control bureaucracy, as a woman not to wear headscarf, for example, I always made kind of bureaucrats, he doesn't shake my hand because of I am just woman and I am just journalist. So also another idea, I was just born as a blonde person. It's not my choice. I had blue eyes, for example. And so I know this is not about religion, about man idea. I know many bureaucratic person who is I need to deal as a journalist. I need to question, I need to answer from them. So I always feel that with them, so it's really difficult time after especially 2002 because of many bureaucratic, mostly they are men and they didn't shake my hand, they almost ignore us in the Ankara, corridors, government building corridors, and because of just I am woman. So I would like to ask this question, not to wear headscarf in Turkey, woman issue. And another question, for example, my grandmother, unfortunately she is dead, but my grandfather always wear the headscarf. My mother, she tried to explain herself as a religion woman, but she doesn't wear the headscarf, and she really believes in Islam. So my family experience also, I know I would like to ask, what is the religion? Who decided woman religion as a headscarf or not to wear headscarf? Because of in Turkey, I met many bureaucratic person, I met many people as a political person. Who decided in Turkey about as a woman I am Muslim or not? Thank you.
I'm going to take a couple more questions. There is one here and then, yes.
I have two questions for Merve Kavakci Islam. I'm writing for Cumhuriyet. First question, how satisfied are you with the AKP's approach to the women's rights in Turkey for the last 9 years? I'm only asking since 2002. And secondly, are you disappointed at all that in the recent listings of the candidates by AKP, there were one or two or none at all women candidates with headscarf? If there was, probably they were at the bottom of the list. Are you disappointed?
Raz.
My question is to Professor Cindoglu. I know you mentioned that it was a qualitative study, but if we were to do more of a quantitative study and being aware that half of the Turkish population is Muslim and women and consists of women, and most of these women are covered women. I mean, looking at it, taking a step back and looking at it, can we evaluate in a way how this discrimination against women and vis-a-vis the headscarf women, how it affects Turkish economy?
One more back there and then.
Actually, someone asked my question.
Okay.
I would like to ask in comparison from Ms. Kavakci with the welfare party.
I'm sorry?
The approach of welfare party to headscarf problem and the AKP's approach to headscarf problem. And what is the role of AKP in the silent coalition between Muslims and Kemalists in this issue? Because a lot of criticals arise in Turkey about this approach from some political figures. I'm not sure that it is an issue with sociological perspective, but more a political perspective, I guess, or coalition. I need her comment on it.
Professor Cindoglu. Yes. For the
Okay, well, thank you. I had the easy questions, so. The harassment, sexual harassment, and discrimination at the workplace is not new. And unless